Sheffield United v Sunderland at Wembley in the 2024-25 playoff final. And this is how it's looking with SBK. Sheffield United are your 7-5 favourites to win in 90 minutes. Sunderland are 12-5. If you think it's going to extra time, it's 21-10. Sheffield United are 4-6 to win the final. That's in 90 minutes or in extra time or in penalties. Sunderland are 11-10. But the question that is echoing throughout Britain right now, through the Peak District, across the River Wear, all the way down to Wembley Way, is what derby is this?
It's the Phil Barsley derby.
No. Oh, I thought this one was so in your wheelhouse that you couldn't possibly get it wrong, but unfortunately you did. It's the Naira Nosworthy derby, Justin, a legend of the game for a legendary occasion. Before we start, Justin, do you want some playoff final stats?
You know what? We're all here. Yeah, we're all building up to the playoff final. Some stats won't hurt anyone. Come on.
Yeah, I thought you might like some, you cheeky little sausage. This is the 5th playoff final in the last 6 years to see a meeting between 3rd and 4th. Only one of those games has been won by the team who finished 3rd. Which is interesting, isn't it? Very much going in the way of Sunderland, that one. Of course, goals are at a premium in the playoff final. Only one of the last 12 playoff finals have seen over 2.5 goals in normal time. That's the thing I always say about playoff finals, Justin. If you're expecting a game for the ages, you're going to be extremely disappointed. As far as great spectacles go, they don't happen in playoff finals. What makes them so thrilling and enticing is what's at stake and the tension in the game itself. Do you know what I mean?
It's the tension. It's definitely the tension because it's the culmination of a season. I think a cup final is different. An FA Cup final is different because that's 6-7 games, isn't it? You know, it's well, unless you start in the very early echelons of the FA Cup, of course. Similarly with World Cup football, your entire season is not defined by one game, whereas in the playoffs, it is.
Yeah.
And that's why the playoffs is so unique. It's not a sexy game of football because it's cup football, but the tension, oh my God, the tension, that's what adds to it. That's what makes it so special and so unique. Oh,
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. The thing is as well, if a team misses out on promotion, that could completely destroy them over the summer, can't it? And if a team if the team wins, if they get to the Premier League, that's it. Whether they stay up the season afterwards or not, they've got a lot of Premier League riches coming their way. So that's what we're talking about here when we say what's at stake. Anyway, here's some more stats for you, Justin. Since the Championship was rebranded in 2004, only 4 of the 20 playoff finals have gone to extra time. Only 2 have gone to penalties. Of the last 10 playoff finals, 7 of the teams who had the most possession lost, which was one which stood out to me, particularly with what we'll be talking about with the tactical battle between these two very shortly. And also quite a funny one. For a long time, it was claimed that teams who traditionally wore red and white striped shirts and black shorts were cursed in the playoffs. Between 1987 and 2020, clubs with those colours made 33 playoff appearances across the whole of the Football League, and they all failed to win promotion. But in recent years, that stat has completely turned on its head because in 2021, we had Brentford win. Last year, we had Southampton win. And now this year, we're guaranteed to have a team in those colours winning. So it'll be 3 years in 5 that a team who traditionally wears red and white stripes and black shorts has won the playoffs. Which is interesting, isn't it?
It is interesting. Didn't Southampton wear a black kit?
No, I'm talking about traditionally wearing them, not what they're wearing on the actual day.
No, that's fair.
Don't you get all nitpicky with me, mate?
just evaluating and stuff. I'm doing my job. The playoff hoodoos are incredible. They really, really are. There was a point, wasn't there, with cup finals at Wembley where we were talking about the changing rooms for such a long time. Who gets what changing room? And that has a significant impact. The intangibles. I mean, these things
I was going to look into changing rooms and I was like, I can't be bothered to do that.
Yeah, but it's funny, isn't it? It's just funny what we cling on to as supporters in any sense. These weird little manifestations are incredible. They really are.
Yeah. Well, I suppose there's one stat, Justin, that stands out above the rest heading into this one. 9 playoff campaigns in the history of Sheffield United, 0 wins. That is the stat which will undoubtedly be worrying Blades fans heading into this game, won't it, PG?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's more so they have the direct memories of these playoff campaigns. I mean, if you've lived through each single one, fair play to you. Obviously, if you're younger, you've not had to feel the pain as much as your elders, if you like. But it definitely plays in the minds of fans more than it does players. That's certainly the case. But as I say, as a fan, you can't help but manifest it. It sticks in your mind. It is an intangible, as I said, it doesn't exist. Like, for example, Spurs never winning a trophy. It's just them being shit. It's not them being. It's not voodoo, is it?
Well, you start thinking it's a curse as a fan, don't you?
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Even though, as you say, it makes absolutely no sense, you do start thinking we are just cursed.
Yeah, and that's absolutely fine. Rather than actually pointing the finger at definite things like, you not recruiting well enough in January or anything like that, it's actually just a curse. But I think this season for Sheffield United is as good as any to kill the hoodoo.
Well, dare I say that with Spurs winning their first trophy in 17 years, Newcastle winning their first trophy in 50 years, Palace winning their first trophy ever.
There we go.
Maybe this is the season for breaking ducks. We'll certainly find out soon, won't we? But yeah, you're absolutely right. We've been saying that throughout every playoff episode that we've been doing, really. If Sheffield United are going to break this duck, it's this season because of the fact they finished 14 points ahead of any other team in the playoffs. They were third. They've got the Premier League riches behind them, the biggest squad, the biggest resources. Everything is going their way, but I don't think that's going to stop Sheffield United fans after this game, if they lose, saying we are definitely cursed if it turns into 10 failed playoff campaigns. Of course, Sunderland's playoff record isn't great either, just the 1 win in 7. But someone's got to win, so we'll find out, won't we, in just over 24 hours' time. And I am so intrigued, though, to see how both these teams approach this game, Justin, mainly because I don't think either of them will want the ball. Both seem to want to play their football by moving the ball around quickly, breaking teams when they've already been coming at them. And look, Sunderland approached the 2 games against Coventry with a clear game plan, which was effectively that, counter-attacking football, low block, what have you. Do you think we'll see the same again here from them?
Oh, definitely. I think even if you look at the possession and passing numbers, both teams float around the same possession percentage, around 49 to 51, as well as their pass success rate as well. So you are right in that sense. And I think with Sunderland's game plan, that's just how they're better set up. They've done well in games against Leeds, Burnley, and Sheffield United. If it wasn't for a late collapse, they'd have taken 4 points off Leeds. If it wasn't for they took the 3 points off Sheffield United as well and took 4 points of Burnley. So they've done well in big games, and that's because these game plans that Regis Lebris knows what to put together. But with I think the only thing is if they go into it the same mindset and play the same way they did against Coventry in the final here, I think Sheffield United do certainly possess a lot more quality to punish Sunderland. So I expect the same game plan, but we need to see a little bit more variation and probably a little bit more organisation off the ball for them to reduce the amount of crosses that would come into the box, for example.
One thing I will say is there's a good chance we could see both teams in a playoff final playing 4-4-2, Justin. Your football is healing. That's what I take away from that. But yeah, I agree with you. I think Sheffield United, if Sunderland are playing with 9 or 10 men behind the ball, they definitely can punish them a bit more. And plus, I think Coventry were quite often just pumping in cross after cross after cross, whereas I don't think Sheffield United will necessarily be as naive, as one-dimensional as that, I suppose, is for the lack of a better term. We obviously had Don Goodman on Wednesday's show, and he was saying he thinks Sunderland will lose if they play the same way in this game as they did against Coventry. And the big reason for that was, well, literally the big reason in this case, is because of Kiefer Moore. Sheffield United will be pumping the ball to him, and he clearly thought they'll punish him. Now, Don knows a lot more about the tactical side of football than me, but I'm not sure it's as simple as that. I just think Dan Ballard marking him, the Sunderland players circling around like ants on a lollipop for any knockdowns. I don't think Regis Lebris will mind if Sheffield United approach this thinking plan A is get the ball on Big Keith's head. You know what I mean? And then Sunderland have shown in the 2 legs against Coventry and even earlier in the season against Sheffield United that they can punish them for any openings they give them, because they can be absolutely brutal, can't they?
Yeah. I think with Kiefer Moore, for example, I think he's going to be a key player in this game. But I think with getting in crosses, I do agree with a lot of what Don Goodman was saying, in that it's not necessarily getting it on his head. It's him. He's going to be occupying defenders in a different way Coventry did. And therefore, yes, Sunderland are very good on those knockdowns, but the knockdowns probably going to be a little bit more effective with Kiefer Moore around than they were with the likes of Haji Wright, Ephraim Mason-Clark, and so on at Coventry. But, I think if Sunderland are as valiant as they were over those 2 legs, sure, they still have a really good chance. But, what Sunderland do possess is, Sheffield United do commit players forward. We know how quickly they can break forward. And actually, it's not necessarily how quickly they break forward, it's how decisive they are and how they break forward. If you get the ball to Endo Lefebvre, Wilson Isidore is in between centre-backs somewhere.
He's on his bike.
The ball's going to find him, isn't it? The ball's going to find him, and that will be the difference. It's who's going to take those moments when they come, and how often those moments come for Sunderland. Because, as I say, if they do camp, they're going to find it very difficult. But we know how sharp they are, how clinical they can be as well on the break. So, yeah, decisiveness and being clinical is going to be key there for the Black Cats.
So how do you think Sunderland will set up for this one, Justin? I think the back 5 is pretty self-explanatory, isn't it? It'll be Patterson in goal, Hume, Ballard, O'Nien, Sirkin at the back. Bellingham and Dan Neil will both start in midfield. It's the rest of the side which is a bit more debatable, isn't it? Enzo Lefebvre will start. The bigger question is, where is he going to start? Will that be in midfield? Will he play more centrally, or will he be on the left wing, as he's most commonly been used since moving to Sunderland? Do they go with a front 2 again of Isidore and Mayenda? Does Patrick Roberts start on the right wing? What do you think?
I think Isidore and Mayenda starting has to be a given, mainly because I just don't think there's enough there to really swap it out, unless you play Isidore and Lefebvre behind and then go super direct with Roberts on one side and Mundle on the left. That being said, do you want to save Romain Mundle so he has an impact later on in the game? It's a risk, but when you've got fast players and tiring legs in that Sheffield United team, Mundle coming on at 0-0, that's a horrible thought, isn't it? I don't think Patrick Roberts has the same impact that Romain Mundle has.
Yeah, for me, Roberts has been Sunderland's poorest player, I think, over the 2 legs in the playoffs, without a doubt. So,
yeah.
But the issue is, I don't know who else would start if you take Roberts out of the firing line. Do you know what I mean? Because if you put Mundle or Lefebvre on the right, then they're going to be nowhere near as effective, are
they?
Yeah, maybe exactly. Mayenda?
Yeah, maybe. But again, it's you're throwing all your eggs into one basket then, aren't you? Because that's ultimately going to be Sunderland's strongest 11. What do you have coming off the bench? Maybe Chris Rigg. I know he had a huge impact in the second leg against Coventry. But again, when you're looking at pace in this side, what do Sunderland have aside from Romain Mundle and Eliza Mayenda? There's not a lot in the bank. Patrick Roberts does possess a lot of good dribbling qualities, but I just don't think he's quick enough to really play where Sunderland, or how direct Sunderland want to play, or probably how direct Lebris wants to play. So for me, I think they're better off starting with Lefebvre on the left, top 2 of Isidore and Mayenda, and then Roberts on the right, and then introducing Mundle later on in the game. But it's a risk.
Yeah, I think that will be what happens. I'd be very surprised if that isn't how they set up. For me personally, I would probably be looking to get Mayenda on the right-hand side instead of Roberts, and Mundle on the left. Whether that's the way to go about it, I don't know. But I just think Patrick Roberts, having been as flat as he has been, when you could have someone like Mundle, who can definitely impact a game, have Lefebvre a bit more centrally as well. I think that would be the way to go about it if I was in Lebris's shoes, but he knows a lot more about his team than I do. But I think that would certainly give Sunderland as much attacking threat as possible instead of, Roberts, I get what he does off the ball, tracking back and what have you, and that will be very important if Sunderland set up the way we expect. But on the ball, he's really left a lot to be desired. Sheffield United starting 11 is pretty set in stone, you would say, as well, Justin, apart from 2 positions. It'll be Michael Cooper in goal, without a doubt. A back 4 of, I presume, Hamza Chowdhury at right back again. Then Ahmed Hodzic, Robinson and Burrows. Sousa and Peck in midfield. Hamer on the left. Kiefer Moore up front. The two question marks are who plays on the right-hand side and who plays up top with Moore, right?
Yeah, obviously Brewster started in one of the legs against Bristol City, and Andre Brooks started in the other leg, on the right-hand side. So it's difficult, isn't it? But again, you're looking at quality in those wide areas. Does Brooks maybe have a little bit more than Brewster in terms of getting balls in? Maybe.
Got Raksaki as well.
Yeah, Raksaki, but again, he's not really... His first half of the season was a lot better than his second half of the season. That being said, he's still got plenty of quality, and he gets to the byline very, very well. But for me, I think Tyrese Campbell definitely starts up front alongside Kiefer Moore. I think he offers a lot more than Tom Cannon.
Is that who you think will start, or is that who you want to start?
I think it's who I think will start. I think he offers a lot more than Tom Cannon. I still don't know what Tom Cannon does.
He runs in behind defenders, doesn't he? And he's not going to get that against Sunderland. That's why, as we were saying on Wednesday, it would be daft if they did play Tom Cannon. Yeah,
whereas I think Tyrese Campbell, I think he's the best of both when it comes to buzzing around the box, slashing onto any loose balls from crosses. That I think obviously Keith Moore will be pivotal in, but also, being a really good poacher and being a more clinical finisher as well. I think Campbell boasts marginally more experience than Tom Cannon. Both, a lot more of age, but certainly not be game time. But as I say, I don't think Tom Cannon offers enough. And Callum O'Hare's the other big one, isn't it? I'm still not sold on what he does in terms of end product. I know he scored in both legs, so there's a bit of a contradiction there. But when it comes to those legs, both games were done and dusted. I probably wouldn't start him and maybe leave him to the end of the game or towards the end of the game. But on the right, I definitely maybe edge towards Andre Brooks.
Okay. I think what is the most likely scenario is it will be Campbell up front alongside Moore, and I think it'll probably be more likely than not Brewster on the right. And that's how I think it will go. What I would prefer to be the case is I don't really have a strong feeling on who should play on the right, because I think all three guys offer different things and, have their own qualities that are really few and far between in my eyes. The most interesting thing for me is who's going to play up front with Kiefer Moore. I would actually maybe not even go for another striker. I would actually just probably opt for Callum O'Hare to kind of play behind Kiefer Moore. Now, I get what you're saying. Yes, his end product can leave a lot to be desired, but when he's come on for Sheffield United in the two legs, he was really, really good. And yes, the game may have been done. But what I'm picturing is Sunderland playing with that low block. I think Callum O'Hare is the kind of player who can get the ball, take on defenders, and try to really break down that low block instead of, just constantly pumping the ball up to Kiefer Moore, just trying the same thing over and over again. I think Callum O'Hare can offer them something a bit different. Do you see what I mean?
I think if Callum O'Hare scored a lot more goals, I would be more confident in him starting in behind Kiefer Moore. But I think with Kiefer Moore, his job is to be a nuisance and offer a lot more through other players. And those other players, I think, for me, need to be more clinical than Callum O'Hare is. Simple as that. I get what you're saying. I completely agree in that he's going to offer a lot in and around the box. And you are right. If Sunderland are playing very, very deep, he's going to be very beneficial in turning possession over and being very good in types of passes he chooses, etc. and ball carrying. But I just think you're lacking goals there. You're lacking big moments. And I think Tyrese Campbell's shown it. Look at that. Steel City derby, the first game earlier on in the year, one chance in that game. That's Tyrese Campbell put it away. So I think for me, Tyrese Campbell starts alongside Kiefer Moore. I think that's the best chance of going ahead in this game than Callum O'Hare.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think that's the most likely scenario. Whether that actually happens or not will be fascinating to see when the lineups get announced at 2:00 tomorrow. It's definitely worth having a chat, though, Justin, about what's at stake for these two sides here, other than obviously a place in the Premier League. Who do you think's got more to lose in this game?
Oh, it's a good question. It is actually a really good question. You'd argue Sunderland, I think, because their squad is likely to get a lot of unrelenting interest in players. Joe Bellingham, it's boring now, but
it's strange saying this about a side who haven't been in the Premier League recently, isn't it? In comparison to a side who have been newly relegated. But I do agree with you. I think Sunderland have more to lose, really.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. They're going to get a lot of money for their players, but they've got to replace them and rebuild them. I back the project that's going on. So I definitely do back Sunderland to replace players that are going to be going. But for me, Sheffield United are in year one of their rebuild. So even if they don't go up and it comes to the 90th minute and they lose the playoff final, I think they're better set than Southampton, Leicester and Ipswich, teams coming down from the Premier League, to make a title charge next season. It's probably a big call to make right now, but I'd slap favourites on them should they lose a playoff final, because as I say, it feels like they're a lot further ahead than those teams. They've got a lot more quality than I think those teams coming down as well, which again is a big call, but I really do think that. So yeah, as I say, they're in year one of their rebuild, whereas Sunderland, they're going to lose players if they don't go up. It's unfortunately just how it is.
Yeah, the vultures will be circling, won't they, if that does happen. I think, for me, Sunderland are guaranteed to be losing Joe Bellingham regardless of whether they go up or not. They obviously won't have Enzo Lefebvre if they don't go up, because he's on loan with an obligation to buy if they go up. I would then also have question marks over the likes of, oh God, where do you start? Chris Rigg, Trey Hume, Dan Neil, Anthony Patterson, Dennis Sirkin, a lot of players there who could potentially be leaving over the summer if Sunderland don't go up. Whereas with Sheffield United, usually you'd expect a fire sale if a newly relegated team doesn't go straight back up. But I was thinking about it the other day. I don't think there's anyone major who they would be guaranteed to be losing. Yes, Vinny Souza, Gustavo Hamer may go, but I think their starting 11 next season won't be too dissimilar to their main starting 11 this season.
No, I agree with that. And again, you're probably going to get bids coming for players, but you're not under pressure to sell because you've got your Premier League money. You've had a new takeover, so you can probably afford to go with the same budget. And actually, I don't think their budget is going to be anywhere near the likes of Southampton and Leicester coming down either. So yeah, I think Sheffield United are in a really good position to not have to sell assets, if you like. They've already had huge array of outgoings last year, so they're in a healthy position, a really healthy position. Whereas you can argue Sunderland, it's going to be a difficult one to keep hold of players, even if they do go up to the Premier League. So it's a unique position that Sheffield United find themselves in, but I think really smart recruitment has led them to be in this position. It's a good one.
It wouldn't even surprise me if in 2 to 3 months' time at the start of next season, if they didn't go up, they were actually with a stronger squad than the one they've had this season, which is very rarely the case with a team who have just been freshly relegated. But it really wouldn't surprise me if that does happen. Here's a very interesting question for you, Justin. Who do you think would do better in the Premier League out of these two? I think it's fair to say the vast majority of neutrals want Sunderland to win because it'll be something different to Sheffield United. But who do you think would genuinely do better out of these two?
For me, I think Sheffield United would. I think they've got more experience in their current squad, which is going to help. I think both teams are probably likely to still come down. The odds are that's going to happen. It's going to be difficult to stay in the Premier League. But Sheffield United are not going to have as bad a season as their last two Premier League campaigns, mainly because, as I say, I think their squad is better built. And they've got new owners with new ambitions. And I think their recruitment has been very, very different to what it has been in previous years. They're slapping 20 million on Ollie McBurney and Ryan Brewster, and I don't think they're going to do that. Judging by what we've seen so far, obviously investing a lot of money in Tom Cannon, signing Brent Brereton Diaz, who I think can still do a job at Premier League level, albeit not very prolifically. Harrison Burrows, Mike Cooper, these are really good assets who I think are going to grow and be better and better suited to the Premier League football in a year's time. Sunderland, though, they're a really exciting proposition because they've shown they're willing to innovate with their recruitment. And what have we said about what have we said about going up? You have to be unique. You have to be unique in your approach to recruitment if you're going to stay up. We've seen it with Brighton, Brentford, Palace, Crystal Palace. I think Sunderland are probably a year too early. A bit like Brighton under Chris Hughton 10 years ago. Probably a year too early for them. So I think Sheffield United, with the experience they got and new owners, probably better set in the Premier League.
I would disagree. Controversial shout for me. I think not only would Sunderland do better in the Premier League than Sheffield United, I think they would do better than Burnley. Now, in terms of their current squad, those two are a fair way ahead of Sunderland, but with how good and how adventurous their recruitment is, I would fancy them to put up more of a fight in the Prem. They've assembled their current squad without a boatload of cash. Imagine what they could do in the Premier League with all the money that you get there to throw at it. So, yeah, don't get me wrong. I think the likelihood is they'll almost certainly go down because of the current state of English football. But I would also say, Burnley, Sheffield United, I give next to no chance either. But I would give Sunderland definitely a better chance of staying up than those two, because I think the way they look at football, the way they recruit, I think is much more forward-thinking than the two clubs I've mentioned there. Justin, hit me back on that.
I think it's a really good debate. I really do. I know we've got Chris Wilder who's been there and done it, but if you look at Regis Lebris, for example, he's exceeded expectations in Ligue 1 with Lorient. We've seen him do it before. And there's no reason why he couldn't do it with Sunderland, as you say, because of their very unique approach to their recruitment. They're very different. They're very smart. And I think that's the key to staying up in the Premier League. I don't think either side are in a position where they can chuck £100 million at it like Nottingham Forest have and they'll have in previous seasons. So being smart, like I think they both have been, I think is the key to giving yourselves a really good opportunity. And you are right, Sunderland, I just think for me, Sunderland are probably a year too early. That being said, I wouldn't be surprised if they do go up. They do have a form of success. What that looks like in terms of staying up or laying gloves on opposition, I don't know. But I think they will be in with a shout.
Well, you got to remember, most of their star players this season, in quotation marks, have all been players in their early 20s, some even younger than that. They will all be a year better next season with more experience under their belt. So that's another thing to keep in mind as well. And yeah, it probably will be a bit too early for them. But I imagine Sunderland would approach it kind of the same way as Ipswich seem to have been doing it this season, where they're getting players with one eye kind of on the Championship next season if they are to go down. I think Sunderland would go about that and then find themselves, if they were to go back down, really thinking far ahead now, if they were to go back down in the future, then they'd come back down to the Championship in a really, really strong position. So yeah, that's why I would say Sunderland, and whatever happens, I think the future's still very bright for them. But we'll talk more about that in due course, Justin. Let's have a quick break, shall we? After that, we'll make a combined 11 of Sheffield United and Sunderland, do our blooming bet builder, and predict who we think is going to the Premier League. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast. This is the previous show brought to you by SBK. We're, of course, looking ahead to the playoff final in just over 24 hours' time. And just before we make our predictions on how we think the game is going to go, we're going to make a combined 11 for Sheffield United and Sunderland, mainly for a bit of fun, but also to give people a good idea of where we think these two sides are stronger than the other. Got to keep in mind there's probably a lot of people listening to this who aren't too familiar with these two sides, so it's a good idea to give them a picture of kind of the best players in each position for these two sides. But we'll start in goal, Justin. Michael Cooper or Anthony Patterson? I would say Cooper's definitely the better option out of these two, isn't he? Yeah,
definitely. Sorry, for some reason my mind diverted to Thomas Sorensen. I don't know why. Mike Cooper definitely is better set. I like Anthony Patterson a lot. I really, really do. I just think he's a bit more, kind of a bit of a rush of blood. I mean, there was a couple of mistakes in the semi-finals against Coventry, for example. Mike Cooper, second best goalkeeper in the Championship this season. So, Big Mike in goal.
Yeah. I like Patterson as well, but Cooper, for me, I rate him really, really highly. I think right back's pretty self-explanatory, isn't it? It's Trey Hume. Sheffield United have had several different right backs throughout the season, and now we've got Hamza Chowdhury filling in there. So when you got Trey Hume, who's been one of the best right backs in the division this season, pretty easy. Centre back, I presume we're going for 2 of 3 here, with that 3 being Ahmed Hodzic, Ballard, 09.
I would, for me, I'd go 2 centre backs. I wouldn't have Ahmed Hodzic in there. I've not been impressed in this season, actually. I think the discussion we had with Curtis Davis and Don Goodman in midweek was actually quite eye-opening in that I've not sat there and gone, yeah, this is the player that I saw a couple of years ago, and this is the player that I saw in the Premier League. I've seen a player that's been almost petulant at times and a bit, there were a lot of rushes of blood, and it's the same with Jack Robinson as well. So for me, I go Dan Ballard on Luke 09. I think that pairing, it's just a better pairing.
Yeah, I struggle to disagree with that. wondering whether for balance we'd be better off putting Ahmed Hodzic in instead of one of the two. But I'm happy with Bellard and 09. Ooh. Left back is interesting because you got two very good players in Harrison Burrows and Dennis Sirkin. I'm more inclined to go Burrows, even though I'm such a big Dennis Sirkin fan, but mainly for balance because we can't have a whole Sunderland back four.
I agree. I think Harrison Burrows, what he offers going forwards is great. He takes penalties again. He's got leadership qualities that I don't think Dennis Sirkin has, if you're comparing the two, of course. But the season that Harrison Burrows has had, I think has gone under the radar quite considerably. It really, really has. I think not a lot of people, again, have probably given him the credit he deserves for stepping up into the Championship, by the way, from League One. It feels like a breakout season, if you like. So, yeah, for me, Harrison Burrows at left back.
Yeah, centre mid's an absolute nightmare, Justin. I didn't think about this when I suggested doing a combined 11. So we've got, well, how many do you want to put in, first of all? And then you've got to choose between Vinny Souza, Sidney Peck, Joe Bellingham and Dan Neil. That's even before you include whether you want to put Gustavo Hamer, Enzo Lefebvre centrally. God, what have we done, Justin?
We've made a mess of ourselves, actually. Put ourselves in a position we didn't want to be in. Vinny Souza, I think
Vinny Souza's got to be in there, hasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Not only does he play with his shirt tucked into his shorts, which is such a rare sight in modern football now, by the way. His ball-winning abilities is great. Is really, really good, amongst the best in the Championship. I think if he plays more games, I know he's been injured at various points this season. If he plays more games, he's probably one of the more standout defensive midfielders in the league. So for me, I would put Vinny Souza in. I would argue I'd go with Dan Neil in there over Sidney Peck. I think they're both similar players, but Dan Neil, I think, possesses a little bit more. He's a bit more of a bastard as well, which I like.
I think
You like Sidney Peck a lot.
I love Sidney Peck, but I also love Joe Bellingham, and I'm a big fan of Dan Neil as well. I think if it's up to me, I would go for a midfield three of Souza, Bellingham and Peck, I think.
See, my three would be Souza, Neil and Gus Hamer.
Yeah. Well, that's before you even consider how we crowbar those guys into the team as well. Should we go Lefebvre left wing and then Hamer on the right? Does that sound okay with you?
No, doesn't sit well with me.
No.
Does not sit well with me.
Well, how the hell are we going to crowbar everyone into this team, though? Because I'm personally not too fussed about getting any of Sheffield United's right wingers in the team. I'm not too bothered about getting Patrick Roberts in the team. Mundell, you could make a case for, but over Hamer or Lefebvre, I would prefer not to. So I think we've got to just sort of jam them into the team on the wings.
Yeah, this will piss off people when they see the 11 graphic on socials, won't it? Oh well, just a bit of fun, guys. I'd be inclined to agree. Let's crowbar Gus Hamer in. We're lacking pace in this team, but my God, has he got quality? Yeah,
and then up front, I strongly suggest Wilson Isidore. You going to disagree with me on that?
No, I don't. I agree. I think despite him before the first leg, of course, he didn't score since February. Hadn't scored since February. So despite that, I think what he offers on the shoulder, I think, is outstanding. It really is. His timing and intelligent runs are just really, really good. I think he's much further ahead in that striking position than the likes of Kiefer Moore, Ryan Bruton. Well, I'm not going to name all the Sheffield United attackers. There's too many.
We haven't nailed down actually who we've got midfield here, Justin. So who are we saying in midfield? Souza, 100%.
Yes.
Bellingham.
Oh wait,
you're saying Dan Neil.
Yeah.
Are you saying Bellingham?
I'm saying Dan Neil over Bellingham. I'm saying Neil over Bellingham.
Okay. But I think Bellingham's got to be in there over Dan Neil for me. Personally.
Why? Because he's a Bellingham?
What? That is an outrageous thing to say. What if we went with Souza, Bellingham, Neil? Is that all right?
Souza, Bellingham, Neil. Okay, fine. Yeah.
It feels bad to me that we're leaving out Sidney Peck, but that's fine. I will happily negotiate that with you if that's how we're going to go. So let's go through this team then, Justin. In goal, we've got Mike Cooper, obviously of Sheffield United. We've got a 3/4 Sunderland, 1/4 Sheffield United back four of Trey Hume at right back. We've got Dan Ballard and Luke 09 at centre back, then Harrison Burrows at left back. Midfield, we've got Vinny Souza, Joe Bellingham and Dan Neil. And then right wing, we've got Gustavo Hamer. Left wing, we've got Enzo Lafay. And up front, we've got Wilson Isidore. Again, feels a bit strange having those two on the wing, but that's the only way I can even figure out how we're going to get them both into this team, Justin.
Yeah, and don't at us, you virgins. That's what we've decided.
The head virgins have spoken when it comes to the combined 11. But there we go. That's our combined 11 for the playoff final. And it's now time for the second tier bet builder with SBK. And before we get on to the playoff final bet builder, just a reminder with SBK, you don't just get an ordinary bet builder. No. They offer you fresh legs as well. Fresh legs, of course, means that when a player gets subbed, your bet carries over onto the player coming on. So whether you need a shot on target, a yellow card or a goal, fresh legs keeps you in the game. SBK have been offering this on every championship game all season long, meaning there really is no better place to bet on the second tier. So sign up for SBK right now. New SBK customers will also receive £40 in free bets when they sign up and place a first bet of £10. And this weekend, SBK offering a free £2 bet builder on the playoff final. T's and C's apply. 18 plus, and please gamble responsibly. So we make our own bet builders with 4 selections. That's 2 for Justin, 2 for me. Justin, what is your first selection for the 2024-25 playoff final?
I've gone with Kiefer Moore to have a shot on target. Big Keith.
Ooh.
Big Keith will be the focal point for the Blades heading into the game, getting crosses into the box and just playing through him, basically. We've discussed that at length. But actually, in addition, he's managed 19 shots in his last 5 games. Ryan, 19 shots in 5 games.
Yeah.
That's more than Derby managed in 8 months. That's a joke.
Oh, is it actually?
No.
Oh, right, I was going to say.
It could be true.
Yeah, it sounds plausible.
But actually, better yet, he's managed a shot on target in 4 of his last 5 as well. Mysteriously didn't hit one against Cardiff. Wink, wink.
Don't know what you're implying there, but yeah, we've spoken a lot about Keith Moore in this episode. It feels like he's going to play a very big part in this game on Saturday. So yeah, him to have a shot on target makes complete sense. Right, let's go on to the next pick for the bet builder. I've gone with under 3.5 cards. Ryan's card pick of the week. You're damn right, baby. Chris Kavanagh is the referee for this one, a Premier League ref. They always give this game to a Premier League ref, don't they? But he's given out over 3.5 cards in just one of his last 7 games. So that's my main thinking behind this. I was going back over the years to see if there's any patterns regarding the number of cards in playoff finals, and there isn't really. Justin, it's very often feast or famine, but with Chrissy Cavs being so card shy recently, I don't think it'll be a feast, put it that way.
Don't know, but I'm just looking at Sunderland's yellow cards. Discipline's awful. Joe Bellingham, Trey Hume and Wilson Isidore have all managed 10 or more yellow cards this season. Chris Rigg is on 9, Luke O'Nine's on 9, Patrick Roberts on 9, Chris Meadows on 9. Well, it's just so many cards that have been dished out in this Sunderland team. And I think with a pitch that is shared by Luke O'Nine, Dan Neil, Jack Robinson, Anu Ahmed Hozic, it's a risk. Definitely a risk, but that's why we play the game, baby.
Maybe, but maybe if I'm getting on the psychological side of the referee, going into his mind, he doesn't want the game to be about him. He wants to just officiate it and make sure everyone has a nice time. So maybe he'll be a bit more lenient when it comes to giving out his cards. I don't know. But that's what I've gone with as our next pick for the bet builder. Justin, what's your next pick?
I've gone with under 2.5 goals. It's a playoff final. I'm expecting a tight game. Sunderland in the semis probably gave you an indication of what to expect here. Tight, nervy affair, settled by a goal. They'll make it a difficult game and will be a tough side for the Blades to break down. And of course, as well, perhaps if we saw 11v11 in that first leg for Sheffield United against Bristol City, we see a second half much like the first half that we saw in that first leg. That was tight and hard to call. So for me, under 2.5 goals, tight playoff final is what I expect.
Yeah, and the stat I mentioned earlier on, Justin, only one of the last 12 playoff finals have seen over 2.5 goals. Yeah, you'd be a brave man to be backing goals in a playoff final, particularly with how evenly matched these two are. So yeah, under 2.5 goals seems like a very straightforward pick. And the final pick for our bet builder is the full-time result to be a draw. When we say full-time, we mean the result after 90 minutes. Now, don't worry, we're not taking the coward's way out. We will be predicting who we think is going to be winning shortly. But I find this game such a difficult one to call that I'm landing on this one going to extra time. Maybe more than that, I don't know. But playoff finals are always tight affairs anyway. No one wants to make a mistake. Everyone will be playing things very safe. And I think particularly with how I would expect Sunderland to approach this one with, a low block, keeping things tight and break when they can, it really wouldn't surprise me if there's nothing to separate these two, Justin.
Yeah, we're going to be getting extra time, apparently. Incredible stuff. Having only seen this on 5 occasions since the year 2000, it's a very unique scenario. But you are right. The fact that I think this game's going to be tight. You agree. Sunderland went into extra time in the semis. I think Sheffield United 11v11 maybe could have gone to extra time as well, had that been a bit more of a closer affair. So, yeah, I think full-time result to be a draw is probably a fair call. It is when you've got a playoff final. It's so hard to separate the teams. Yeah, probably you're on the right lines with extra time.
I mean, Sheffield United fans will be pointing out they had the biggest aggregate scoreline in playoff history. So whether Bristol City had 11 men or not and it going to extra time feels like a bit of a dig. But as I was saying earlier, I don't think there's as much of a gap between these two as the points tally would suggest in the final championship table. So, yeah, I think a draw is definitely what I'll be backing tomorrow. A draw after 90 minutes, of course. And then it's the small matter of who we think is actually going to win, which we'll get onto very shortly. But just quickly, the second tier bet builder for the playoff final, brought to you by SBK, looks like this. Kiefer Moore to have a shot on target, under 3.5 cards, under 2.5 goals, and the result to be a draw after 90 minutes. Your free £2 stake on that bet builder returns £38 with SBK. Not a bad day's work at all. That'll pay for 2 pints down in London. But remember, if you don't fancy our bet builder with SBK, you can create your own bet builder from a range of markets. T's and C's apply. 18 plus, and please gamble responsibly. Right then, here we go. Time to pick the splinters out of our arses and predict who we think is going to be celebrating tomorrow evening. Now, we haven't revealed to each other who we think is going to win. This is news to the two of us. So, Justin Peach, are you going with Sheffield United to win the 2024-25 playoff final, or are you going with Sunderland?
I'm going with the team in stripes, Ryan.
Great, that narrows it down.
I'm going with Sheffield United. I think this game's closer than many people think going into it. I think a lot of people will say Premier League, Sheffield United come down for Premier League, parachute payments, big squad, invested a lot in it, but I think there are so many more factors at play here. That being said, I do eventually agree with them. I just think Sheffield United have got more players to mix things up. They can fall on a vast armoury should they go 1-0 down, for example. They boast a huge amount of experience as well, which I think will help in these types of games. I think when you consider how Sunderland played in the 2 legs against Coventry as well, the law of averages will tell you that Kiefer Moore needs far less crosses to score than any Coventry player needed. And I think Sheffield United will be favourites for a reason. They've had a better season in terms of league points. They've scored more goals, etc. They have a deeper squad. And actually, Curtis Davies said something in our midweek episode that actually sat with me quite significantly in picking this out, is that I think Sheffield United are turning up to get to the Premier League. It's not about Wembley, it's getting to the Premier League. I'm not saying that's the same as Sunderland, but I think that mindset that Sheffield United will edge them in this game.
Interesting. I've been going back and forth over this ever since the end of the second leg. It has honestly consumed my mind for a good week and a bit now. But the more I think about it, the more I'm siding with Sunderland. Now, there's a few factors why. First of all, I'm getting similar vibes to this game as the one last year, where most people sided with Leeds and then Southampton did a job on them. Would not surprise me at all if the same happened here. I think the 2 meetings between these sides earlier in the season showed Sunderland know how to take the game to Sheffield United. I can see Eliza Mayenda running rings around the Blades defenders. Wilson Isidore really stretching them. And if Sunderland do set up the same way as they did against Coventry, I think Sheffield United may struggle to break them down. And one final factor, which I believe just simply cannot be underestimated here, is Sheffield United's woes in the playoffs. When you've never won a playoff campaign after 9 attempts, I think that's hard for the players to ignore, because they'll know about that. And if they don't, Chris Wilder definitely will, with him being, a die-hard Blades fan. And sometimes he's guilty of letting his emotions get the better of him. So all that is why I'm going with a Sunderland win in the playoff final. Justin, what do you think?
There's a lot that is easy to agree with. It's so hard to separate. I think the factors that I mentioned with Sheffield United are relevant factors. I think with Sunderland, what might sway me a little bit is it's what happens on the pitch. I think if Sheffield United do a job on Enzo Lefebvre, Wilson Isidore will be nullified because those balls over the top won't exist. And so I think if Sheffield United can completely restrict the supply into him, I don't think Sunderland have a lot in their army to get at Sheffield United. So I think that's where the battle's going to be key, is stopping Lefebvre and Dan Neil getting those balls over the top for Isidore, because as Don Goodman and Curtis Davis were talking about on Wednesday, I think Sheffield United's biggest weaknesses are probably the right-back scenario, but also Ahmed Hodzic and Jack Robinson, the centre-back. They're going to be big factors, really big factors. So for me, if that happens, and if Sunderland find a way around it, I think they'll pick up the win. But for me, I think Sheffield United will actually just do a job on stopping that supply to Wilson Isidore.
It's such a hard one to call.
Yeah.
Honestly, over the next 24 hours, I may change my mind again and start siding with Sheffield United. I honestly don't know, because I've been so back and forth on it for so many days. But I am honestly looking forward to this game so much, because it is mouth-watering in terms of the tension, what's at stake, and just how intriguing it is with how evenly matched these teams are. Do you want me to make one final prediction for this game, Justin?
Oh, you're going to say it anyway. I can't say no, can I?
I've got a feeling VAR will play a part tomorrow, because is this the 4th playoff final we've had where VAR's been involved? And the last couple of years, we haven't had any controversy, unless I'm seriously forgetting something.
Forest
We
Huddersfield.
did that was the one I was going to say, Forest Huddersfield, just before that, which was an absolute disaster. I think we're overdue some VAR madness in a playoff final. Do you know what I mean?
I do. Yeah, I kind of do. Mainly because we get Premier League refs, and unfortunately, Premier League games are ref by VAR, aren't they? They're not ref by the refs. It's VAR, so it's more likely to happen. But you are right, we've not seen too much in the way of controversy in playoff finals. So it wouldn't be a surprise to see something decided like a Rob Dickey scenario in the second leg, first leg, in the playoffs, for example. So these things can happen.
Yeah, I've just got a sneaky feeling we're going to have some VAR, because it doesn't seem to have been spoken about much in the lead up to this, and it still doesn't totally sit right with me that we'll go the entire season without VAR, but then have it in the playoff final. It just seems a bit weird. But yeah, I think we're overdue some sort of controversy when it comes to the old video assistant referee. Right, so this has been our playoff final preview, but it's now time for this.
All right. Settle down, you lot. It's time for the Craig Bryson pub quiz.
Oh, yes, it is, Mr. Barman. It's the final Craig Bryson pub quiz of the season. And this is how it works. Justin is going to give me 6 clues about a championship player, past or present, each more revealing than the last, and I simply have to guess who it is. They must have made over 200 championship appearances in their career, and don't forget, the Dexter Blackstock rule is in play. I didn't realise, Justin, the last time we did this, because it's been a while since we last did a CBPQ, but that means you've gone the entire season without getting one wrong, which is bloody good going.
The Invincible,
there you go. I think I've only got 2 wrong this season, but the number we've done this season, for us to just have 2 wrong between us is...
Not between us, don't say that.
Why?
I'm unbeaten.
Okay.
You got 2 wrong, I got 0 wrong. To get 2 wrong in the entire season, but I got just caveat it, all right? I'm not being tarnished with your brush.
We'll put an asterisk next to it alongside 115 charges. Maybe I was being a bit too nice with my clues over the season. I don't know, but maybe. Anyway, Justin Peach, for one final time this season, what have you got for me, you bastard?
I've made 457 appearances, scoring 11 goals.
Now, if you had any journalistic integrity about you, this would be a playoff hero of some sort. But I'm struggling to come up with many who have only scored 11 goals in 400 odd appearances. I don't know. Let's go.
You're a dick. You're such a
Exactly.
dick. You're such a dick.
Come on!
That's just outrageous. Such an arsehole.
One clue. One clue, ladies and gentlemen.
That's never happened.
That has never happened before. That has never happened before. Oh, that is so good. Wow. Well, there you go, ladies and gents. I think that kind of evens up what we were just talking about a second ago, just in going unbeaten all season. I'm the man who got a CBBQ in one go. How long did it take you to assemble this this Craig Bryson, Justin?
The usual 15 minutes, but it's the wording of the clues. I think I've done a really good job with these.
Oh, no. Now I feel bad. All your hard work has been wasted.
The last one of the season. You fucking ruin it.
Oh, no. Well, go on then, Justin. How about this? We'll get producer Tom to beep out the answer initially, and then people at home can play along.
Yes, that's a good
to
idea.
your clues, and then we'll reveal the answer after you've read out all the clues. Go on then, Justin.
That's a good idea. The second clue, ladies and gents, and my apologies. I made my professional debut in Iceland before making my English League debut for Bristol City in 2005.
Flipping heck, I would have never got that in a million years.
There you go. The next clue. I was part of the Republic of Ireland squad at Euro 2016, also making 26 caps for Republic of Ireland.
Okay. I forget he played for Ireland, but yeah, carry on. It's because he's got a very Essex accent, hasn't he?
Yeah, he does. And also, I mean, I was going to say his last name then. Nearly gave it away.
Yep.
I have played for Coventry, Huddersfield Town, Blackpool and Derby in the Championship.
Okay. I think people may start getting it now.
Yeah. Next clue is, I am now a coach at Barnsley.
Didn't he leave the other day?
He left Blackpool.
Oh, there you go. I knew he left someone because he's now Conor Hurahan's assistant, isn't he?
He is.
Yeah.
He is. Obviously, former Ireland teammates.
Oh, yeah.
The final clue is, I'm probably well known for a playoff final moment where I was decisive in a Wembley winner.
There you go. And if you haven't figured it out yet, ladies and gentlemen, it is, of course, the man with the extremely wide eyes. It's Richard Keogh.
It is.
I feel bad for getting that so quickly, but hopefully it's managed to suspend the disbelief for people a bit more, and they were able to play at home and, you know, have a good go at it, Justin, because I ruined everything.
Yeah, that's what we didn't want on the final day of the season. I want you to get to the final clue sweating. You may have got it at that fourth clue with the clubs, but that final clue, you mentioned journalistic integrity. I stuck to it. He was a playoff hero for QPR.
A playoff icon, shall we say.
I think QPR fans will say he's a hero.
Okay, yeah, fair point.
And Forest fans.
And various others, probably. But there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's been the final Craig Bryson pub quiz of the season. And this has been the final second tier preview show brought to you by SBK of the season. We'll be back again tomorrow because we will be there for the playoff final and we'll be reacting straight after the final whistle at Wembley. We'll be getting that episode out as soon as possible. So whether you're watching on YouTube, whether you're listening to the podcast, we'll try and get that out in the hours after the playoff final, as soon as we can, essentially, to give you fresh reaction straight off the back of that game. But stay tuned to our social media over basically the next 24 hours, because we'll be putting out loads of content from in and around Wembley. And, Justin and I will be giving our takes at various points throughout the day as well. Justin, I'm excited. Are you?
I genuinely got butterflies in my tummy. I'm really excited.
Well, there we go. So if you see us, if you're a Sheffield United fan or a Sunderland fan or supporting someone else, but you're at Wembley for whatever reason anyway, then come say hi to us, because we'll be knocking about. And we'll have a jolly good time before all the tears or celebrations happen at the final whistle, because it's the playoff final, baby. It's my favourite time of the year. Me and Justin going on a big day out, and I cannot bloody wait. But there we go. This has been the Second Tier Preview Show, brought to you by SBK. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.